Saw dudes, just as usual, it's time to perform level cap testing. I released my dedicated Gyre Build video, and it got some great feedback. As I mentioned in the video, Gyre is a high investment frame, and this level cap showcase and discussion will cover that. Nevertheless, Gyre is a great frame, and feels like a mix between Saren, Volt, and Gauss. She is a great hybrid between caster frames and weapons platforms. She's an elegant bringer of chaos, fluid, stylish, and dangerously effective. Let's get started. This Gyre build was featured in the dedicated build video and uses Pillage as the helmet ability. It had very few issues handling most of the problems of the run and could handle a lot of pressure put on by the majority of enemies. Between her crit scaling passive and massive AoE damage, she thrived in high-end endurance. This build uses Brief Respite as the aura, converting energy spent into shields. That synergizes beautifully with Rolling Guard for consistent periods of invulnerability on demand. You can face tank through gunfire and still keep your ability cycle going without missing a beat. Even though we have Pillage, this aura works well for filling in the gaps of shield downtime. Alternatives are Corrosive Projection, Energy Siphon, and Growing Power. In the Exilus slot, I went with Power Drift. That bonus 15% ability strength pushes Gyre closer to her breakpoints, especially for maximizing Cathode Grace energy regen and crit chance. It also provides some additional knockdown resistance, which helps you keep momentum during chaotic fights. Blind Rage and Umbral Intensify form the core of the build's ability strength. Blind Rage brings huge power at the cost of efficiency, while Umbral Intensify boosts strength without downsides. The negative efficiency from Blind Rage is not a significant concern, as it helps return shields with Brief Respite. Also, energy costs are generally not an issue due to Cathode Grace's energy regen over time. Archon Stretch plays a critical role in this setup. Whenever Gyre applies an electric proc to an enemy, which is essentially all the time, it refunds energy. The extra range is great for making Arc Sphere's crowd control much better. Combined with Prime Continuity, which boosts ability duration, we can keep Cathode Grace active for longer, generating crit chance and energy like clockwork. Rolling Guard is here for survivability. It clears status effects and gives a brief window of invulnerability, letting Gyre reset or reposition if things get too hot. This is our failsafe just in case we can't cast Pillage. Then we have Flow, which boosts max energy and helps buffer against high cost casts, especially with Blind Rage equipped. Please use Prime Flow, I just had polarity issues. Conductive Sphere drastically increases outgoing weapon damage beyond Gyre's usual crit enhancement. The augment causes projectiles that travel through it to inflict electricity damage and guaranteed stats effects. The buff is very easy to activate and it makes raw damage weapons into damage over time giants. Cathode Current is an augment mod for Cathode Grace that causes enemies killed to release an additional discharge from Rotor Swell and extend its duration. This mod eliminates the need to recast Rotor Swell, assuming Gyre is getting enough kills. In level cap, this will happen all the time, since the name of the game is to kill as many as possible as fast as possible. Pillage is the helmet ability subsumed over Coil Horizon. Coil Horizon, while great for applying even more electricity damage, is unfortunately redundant and does not increase damage or provide adequate survivability. Pillage allows for consistent shield gating and status cleanse, allowing Gyre to stay in the action for longer. The defense shred from Pillage allowed weapons buffed by Arc Sphere to truly shine, since the electricity procs were no longer hindered by armor. As you will see in the footage, this ability became invaluable for taking out Thrax units. Arcane Steadfast and Molt Augmented were the chosen arcanes. Arcane Steadfast drastically reduced energy strain by giving Gyre a chance to cast 3 abilities without using energy. This allowed Cathode Grace to refill her energy pool to a much higher degree and made surviving with Pillage much easier. Molt Augmented increased the damage of Conductive Sphere's buff and Pillage's defense strip. It also increased the energy regen and crit chance from Cathode Grace and the discharge damage from Rotor Swell. For this level cap test, I ran with 1 Tauforge Amber Shard and 4 Tauforge Violet Shards. The 1 Tauforge Amber Shard was used for casting speed naturally. Gyre's glaring weakness is her lack of survival tools, which is compounded by her slow casting speeds. Speeding up the animations makes shield gating much easier and reduces the window of time that Gyre is vulnerable. The 4 Tauforge Violet Shards are split. 3 of the 4 are used to increase ability damage on enemies affected by electricity status by 15%. Combined, this is a 45% increase, which is great for Arc Sphere and Rotor Swell. The final Violet Shard was used as a mini Equilibrium. This was a precaution I wanted to use given the finicky nature of level cap runs. The Equilibrium effect could get Gyre out of an energy drought in a pinch. The primary I chose for this run was the Coda Bassocyst, equipped with a magnetic valence bonus. I do not currently own a Coda Bassocyst with a full 60% bonus, but it doesn't seem like it needs it. Galvanized Savvy increases our base damage and more importantly scales with the number of status effects on a target. Galvanized Hell cranks our multi-shot way up, meaning we have more pellets for more status, more crits, and more everything. Critical Deceleration gives us a massive 200% crit chance bonus, but slows our fire rate. Prime Ravage boosts our crit damage, which is essential given Cathode Grace's crit chance buff. With Red Crit Potential, this mod makes every shot hit like a truck when those red crits land, especially in tight groups. Scattering Inferno gives us heat damage and a status chance buff, which combines with Prime Chilling Grasp, providing blast damage and status. Blast status makes crowd clearing a bit easier, and since we are sitting at 96% status chance, it is incredibly easy to melt crowds. Shotgun Barrage brings our fire rate back up after critical decelerations penalty. Shotgun Elementalist increases elemental damage and mag size. This increases our blast proc damage and the electricity proc damage from Conductive Sphere. Galvanized Acceleration is here for projectile speed and fall-off mitigation. The Bassocyst shots travel slowly by default, and this makes it feel snappier and lets us maintain full damage at longer range. The Arcane is primary deadhead since we're aiming for headshots. Electricity status procs can headshot, but have a 1x headshot multiplier by default. The bonus headshot damage from deadhead drastically increases the electricity proc damage. If you want to double down on status damage, consider swapping Shotgun Barrage for the appropriate Bane mod. You will have to source fire rate from another area, or get used to the low innate fire rate of the Bassocyst. As usual, I chose the Epitaph Prime since it is an excellent primer and helps optimize the Coda Bassocyst damage. I will spare you the explanation and just boil it down to this. The build applies corrosive, radiation, blast, magnetic, and cold status effects in its large AoE quickshot, and it also applies IPS if you choose to deal damage directly. Secondary Fortifier leeches some of the Overguard from Xmas units that are hit and causes hits from the Epitaph to deal 8 times more damage to Overguard. The melee weapon I used was Praedos with the evolutions Drifting Grace, Shockwave Synergy, Evolved Ascension, and Universal Readiness. It was a movement steroid, and was seldom used during the run, because it's another primer weapon, surprising to nobody. Gyre is a gun platform, meaning that while she can use melee weapons, it's not really her style. The build on screen is meant to prime enemies with cold and gas procs for additional scaling on Coda Bassocyst in a pinch. Additionally, it has a buttload of attack speed and melee duplicate equipped for as much status application as possible. Shattering Impact is included on the build as a backup for Armor Shred, just in case ability casting is blocked due to acolytes or energy issues. The Panzer build I went with is a standard that I have shown in my other showcases. Tenacious Bond increases crit damage, and Reinforced Bond increases fire rate. Tenacious Bond synergizes beautifully with Coda Bassocyst and Gyre's crit chance steroid. Momentous Bond allows the Panzer to prime more effectively given the number of Xmas kills and Steel Path. Viral Quills launches quills that apply viral status, and Panzer Devolution works with Martyr Symbiosis to act as a failsafe. Fetch is a vacuum for loot, and Primed Animal Instinct gives a loot and enemy radar. The Panzer Claw build is the same as usual. I used Balanced Posture to ensure all enemies were primed effectively. Shocking Claws drastically increases status chance and applies electric damage. This is a backup for activating the passive of Archon Stretch, just in case energy runs low. If you are not plagued by skill issues as I am, you can feel free to swap this out for any of the other primary elemental claw mods. Bite increases crit chance enough to give us a crit damage bonus via Tenacious Bond, and the rest of the mods increase the damage that the Panzer does, and primes enemies for attacks from our weapons, being Coda Bassocyst. Madurai is the focus school I used, as usual for level cap Void Cascade. Void Strike and Void Fuel were used to kill Thrax units with my amp more easily. Phoenix Talons unfortunately is useless on this loadout since Coda Bassocyst purely deals elemental damage on its primary fire. If you use other weapons with physical damage types, you will see a nice damage bump. Power Transfer decreases the casting time for all of Gyre's abilities, but more importantly makes Pillage's casting animation incredibly quick. Sling Strength increases ability strength for all abilities, and increases the damage output by a lot since it increases the Conductive Sphere buff. Contamination Wave just made it easier to kill Thrax units on headshots. The amp I used was the standard 147, also known as the Certus Brace, Rat Black Prism, and Fat Scaffold. This is the amp I always use, and I still recommend you try it out for level cap runs. I use Magus Cloud, Magus Lockdown, Eternal Eradicate, and Eternal Onslaught as my operator arcanes. Let's talk about the current. This level cap run with Gyre was smooth and consistent. The biggest challenge wasn't killing, it was maintaining shield gating through pillage spam and heavy crowd control. Enemy scaling wasn't a problem because Gyre's kit is built for consistent damage growth, and with the right setup, her damage loop becomes self-sustaining. As you already know, I subsume Pillage over Coil Horizon. While Coil Horizon offers strong grouping, Pillage brought two things Gyre desperately needed at level cap: a consistent defense strip and shield gating ability. With Brief Respite and Rolling Guard, each Pillage casts refund shields based on energy spent, with a backup in case of energy bottom out or ability interruptions. This mod setup provides a reliable way to reset the gate every few seconds. This turns survivability into a rotation. Cast Pillage, apply Strip, restore shields, then rinse and repeat. Her loop relies on tight timing and synergy between Arc Sphere, Rotor Swell, and Pillage. Arc Sphere drops a lingering electric field that pulses AoE damage and applies electric status. The Conductive Sphere augment boosts weapon damage significantly based on Gyre's ability strength and causes weapons to deal electricity damage with guaranteed status, meaning it had more utility than being a subpar damage dealer and crowd control tool. Rotor Swell discharges AoE electric arcs on every crit, and with Gyre's passive granting plus 10% crit chance per electric proc on a target, this creates a feedback loop. Electric status feeds crits, crits trigger Rotor Swell applies more arcs, and supplies more kills. The kills were most common in lower levels thanks to Pillage's defense strip. The biggest positive from Rotor Swell, though, was its constant crowd control. The Coda Bassocyst was my primary weapon, chosen specifically for synergy with Gyre's kit. It ramped up quickly using primary deadhead, stacking bonus headshot damage that amplified the electricity procs applied by Conductive Sphere. It wasn't just a fallback, it contributed directly to crowd control and allowed for high KPM. Primary deadhead amplified the damage of the electricity procs applied on headshots, making Gyre's outgoing damage lethal against HVTs like Thrax units. Epitaph Prime was used as a backup primer for corrosive and magnetic procs when needed, but most of the time, the Coda Bassocyst and Gyre's abilities handled the layering. The key here was the status overlap, stacking multiple procs to activate her crit boost, while also layering dots and other stats effects for passive increases in damage. This meant Arc Sphere could crowd control, proc electric, and the Bassocyst would finish the job. Epitaph Prime, with its application of corrosive, cold, and magnetic procs, made the Bassocyst hit harder against overguarded enemies, which became essential past level 5000. For survivability, the build leaned hard into flow and a Tauforge Violet Archon Shard with the mini Equilibrium passive. Energy economy was stable as long as some orbs were dropping, but unlike builds with true Equilibrium plus Synth Fiber setups, there was some energy tension between spawn lulls or decaying zone phases. Arcane Steadfast helped manage ability spam, especially with Pillage and Arc Sphere, but extended fights required discipline on cast timing to avoid running dry. Overcasting Arc Sphere was the most common pitfall. Even with Cathode Grace providing 4 energy per second, running out of energy was a constant threat if I spam my abilities mindlessly. The overall playstyle was a constant loop. Cast Arc Sphere to apply AoE damage, status, crowd control, and buff weapon damage. Keep Rotor Swell and Cathode Grace active with kills, and get into firing range with Coda Bassocyst for electricity headshots. Then cast Pillage to refresh the shield gate, cleanse status, and strip defenses. Stay mobile, then rinse and repeat. Once the loop was stabilized, assuming I achieved enough kills in a short period, Gyre would kill in every direction with arcs chaining across crowds, status procs, building crits, and electricity tearing through overguard and armor. Conductive Sphere and the energy regen from Cathode Grace did most of the heavy lifting. The Coda Bassocyst and Pillage just fed into it perfectly and acted as glue for the rest of her kit. So, can I recommend Gyre for level cap? Absolutely, but she needs the right setup. Her kit is a little bit demanding, her damage loop is lethal, and her kill speed keeps up with the tempo of high-end Cascade. But she does require tight shield gate rotations with Pillage, good energy support, and weapon synergy to ramp up and complement her AoE. She doesn't offer much in raw survivability. She has no damage resistance, no innate invulnerability, and no healing. So her uptime depends entirely on your ability to execute the loop. But if you do, she can clear a tile before some frames even get their damage ramped up. Gyre is not a low investment frame. You will need to put a lot into her to get a good return worth playing. However, she does present a wildly interesting playstyle that appeals to fans of both caster frames and weapon platforms. With a little juice and a little TLC, she will blow through most content with ease. Once everything is spinning, she clears level cap with consistency and precision. I hope this level cap video helped. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, and happy farming. Stay safe.
Now the Exodus is perfect. cascade is growing out of control.